Jack the Ripper. It was a dark and stormy night in the Whitechapel district of London. I was huddled under my cloak, trying to stay warm and dry as I made my way home from the market. Suddenly, I heard a strange noise behind me. I turned, but there was no one there. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding in my chest. As I turned down a narrow alleyway, I heard the sound again. This time, it was louder and closer. I looked around frantically, trying to find somewhere to hide. But it was too late. A rough hand grabbed my arm, pulling me into the darkness. I struggled and screamed, but the hand clamped down harder, muffling the sound. I was dragged deeper into the alley, my feet scraping against the wet cobblestones. I could see a figure looming over me, his face obscured by a hood. Suddenly, the figure grabbed my throat, choking off my air supply. I gasped and clawed at the hand, trying to break free. But the grip only tightened. I could feel myself slipping away, the darkness closing in around me. Just when I thought it was the end, the hand released me and I fell to the ground, gasping for air. I looked up to see the figure disappearing into the night, a glint of metal in his hand. As I stumbled to my feet, I realized with horror that I had just encountered Jack the Ripper, the notorious serial killer who had been terrorizing the streets of London. I knew that I had to get to safety and warn the authorities, but my legs were shaking and I could barely stand. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear the killer's footsteps behind me, growing louder and closer. I knew that he was gaining on me, and I pushed myself to run faster. Suddenly, I stumbled and fell to the ground. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I looked up to see the hooded figure standing over me, a cruel smile on his face. I screamed and begged for mercy, but the killer was relentless. He raised his knife high, ready to strike. And then, everything went black. When I came to, I was lying in a pool of my own blood, the killer nowhere to be found. I was barely conscious, but I knew that I had to get help. I dragged myself to the nearest house and pounded on the door, crying for help. Miraculously, someone answered and called for an ambulance. I was rushed to the hospital, where I spent weeks recovering from my injuries. But the physical scars were nothing compared to the mental trauma I had suffered. I was haunted by the memory of the killer's cold, calculating gaze and the feeling of the knife piercing my flesh. I knew that I would never be the same again, and that the horrors of that night would stay with me for the rest of my life.
Subscribe, like, and comment a story you want us to generate. Click the playlist to see many other stories.